Tuesday, December 14th, 2021. I'd like to call the School District of Tomahawk Board meeting to order. If you would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Colleen, would you do a roll call, please?
Haveman, Huseby,
Yes.
Johnson, Kirsch, Kissinger-Wolf,
Yes.
Long,
Here.
Rudai, here, Baloo,
Here.
Zimmerman.
Here.
We have a quorum. I'd like to have item number 5, adoption of the agenda as presented. Looking for a motion.
Long so.
Second, Blue.
Motion's been made by Long, seconded by Baloo. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Item 6, public comment. This is the time for the public to come up, a 3-minute limit. If you would come forward and address yourself and speak at the mic. Sue?
Hi, my name is Sue Hawkins, resident of Tomahawk, or Town of Scanlon. I just want to take this opportunity to thank the school district and specifically the middle school for that awesome Veterans Day program that they had. I don't know how many people have had the opportunity to experience that. I know we've done it in previous years, but I know the veterans really appreciated it. The middle school students were awesome with their speaking. And just having the program in general, and I really want to make sure I give them a thanks and recognition. And Mr. Marin to the band, thank you very much. Trumpet player did a good job on the tab. And Mr. Colburn, I think is his name, the choir teacher. I just think that they did a really awesome job and really went out. I know a lot of veterans talked about the program for a long time, and I want to thank you for taking that time to celebrate our freedoms that they fought for. And just hope we can continue to celebrate those freedoms here in the school district and honor what they fought for. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Is there anyone else for public comment? Okay, Colleen, no one was signed up? Okay. Then we'll move on to item 7. Consent agenda items. Before you, you have the regular minutes from the November 23rd, the closed session from November 23rd, invoices, the employment contracts, the resignations, the replacement staff, and the donations. We're looking for a motion or any discussion.
I so move. Blue.
Rudai seconds.
Second.
Motion's been made by Blue, seconded by Rudai. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Just I'd like to thank Harley Davidson and Outboards for their donation towards the Hatchet Park project.
Isn't that?
That was added on. That wasn't budgeted.
Is that
That was
Louisiana
additional.
Pacific? I thought.
Louisiana Pacific, I'm sorry. I said that wrong. Louisiana Pacific and Outboards.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, item 8. Approval of the new high school course.
Hello, I'm just going to take the opportunity to introduce Mr. Scott and I, our business education teacher, and so we're bringing before you a new course to add to the business ed department. So I'll let him just give a brief overview and answer questions that you might have.
All right, thank you, Ryan. So, I don't know how to do that. I've been accused of being loud before. So, basically what I'm looking at is a year-long course. It'd be the only one in the sequence on the business end, which ties directly to the operation of the school store. COVID kind of shut down restarting it, and it's kind of become obvious that, at least the way that I envision it, it makes more sense to have at least a small group, which I think is better than a larger group that's primarily dedicated to making that thing run over the course of a year. Made several attempts through a couple of semester classes previous to COVID to make it go. Other than getting some staff, it only worked for about a semester. So the goal of this course is to serve as a capstone experience sort of for kids in the department. Ultimately, the goal is the kids coming in would have at least 1 or 2 courses in the department where they can directly apply skills, where they would partner with the course that you approved last year, THS Innovations, in combining to produce and sell products within the school and eventually to the community, as well as what we've been running in-house, which running some specials with beverages and things of that nature throughout the course of the year, which a group of kids that has worked semester by semester in previous years have taken some leadership role to kind of skeletally get it going where we want to go. So that's the goal, and there's also opportunities that we want to give the kids for industry certifications that occur within there that are tied to business. So the kids that are getting in there, the goal is that they're taking this seriously and they want to take it as a way to gain some applicable experience before they get out of high school.
Questions,
or
Scott?
concerns?
I had read your summary
before I came today, and I was impressed, and I'm also impressed with hearing from you. You know, it's one thing to attain knowledge, as we all know, but the next step is the application, and that's what you're emphasizing. So I think that's an awesome idea. Very impressed.
Thank you.
I would second that too. I think it's, given some practical experience, I think is very good. However, will they actually meet in a classroom on a daily basis, or how is that gonna work?
Yeah, the plan is it would be something that they would be scheduled for a class every day, because I'm, just as a quick example, I'm in the process of putting together kind of an inventory and sales tracking system with just using Google Sheets and things like that. So there's gonna be a combination of things that they'll do operationally for the store itself, as well as one of the things they're gonna be required to do is do Microsoft Office certification, as I think all of you appreciate, and at least from me, coming from a private sector background myself, is I don't see the private sector going to Google anytime soon. So them getting some practical application of Microsoft applications, I think is beneficial. So that's gonna be part of a requirement they're gonna have. There's also gonna be some other certifications that will, again, it's resume building. So the combination of working on operational pieces, planning, marketing, and advertising, we've got equipment that we've got for this purpose as well last year. So there's gonna be lots of different applications, operations, staffing, the financial aspect, marketing and sales, and then other operational leadership opportunities. So yeah, they will be in class every day.
I also see this as an opportunity for those, maybe not right away, but in the future might be looking to go into business for themselves. I think they would learn some real practical experience.
Oh, absolutely, because, you know, again, like I said, I'm putting some things together, but as I'm finding with this group of kids that I'm having skeletally do this, I can put the skeleton together, but that's usually all I need to do because they usually have better ideas than I do. So but it takes something to get them going, and that's at least what the starting point is. If I provide them a starting point, then they can kind of see it develop, and then I can just suggest based on experience, and then we see how it plays.
As you go forward, I would encourage you to make sure that you obviously work through your administrative team, but make sure the board is aware of resources that you might need. You know, that may not be available to you, but there's something that you know you could fill a gap, you know you could fill a need, and it would be a fabulous experience for our students. Make sure you feel comfortable sharing that, obviously, with your own team, administrative team, but making sure the board is aware of it, because I think this is a great program.
No, I appreciate you saying so, because on that same vibe, Star Foundation gave us a grant to cover putting in a new cash register in there. So, because right now we've kind of been doing it manually, which has its benefits, let's just say, because, you know, I don't know about you, but when I'm in the drive-thru, I hate getting the dollar bill under the change. It's like, there it goes. So putting that in there with some of the equipment we've already gotten over the last couple of years, in that vibe, we wouldn't have had the means right now to drop $500-700 on some extra signage in that cash register, so that helps. So as you mentioned, certainly I'll keep that in mind as we see needs come up.
Good.
And this store is in the high school?
Yeah, it's in the
cafeteria?
high school cafeteria, it's been there for a while, yeah.
And so it's just a concession stand that's outside the door, or how is that?
Not
Is that
really.
connected?
I mean, granted, the majority of our sales during the day, range from coffee, cappuccino, or hot chocolate, or things like that, but there's a few other things in there. Some mugs, some basic school supplies, chargers, and things like that. I mean, that's part of the process of what the kids are gonna work with. Their goal is to try and find other ways and products that we can sell both in the building and eventually outside of the building, and ways to reach other people.
Thank you.
The one part I was just gonna highlight was that, some comments that Scott had made about long-range planning. And so one of the things I think that you're starting to see is that with the Career and Technical Education Department, they're putting those foundational skill courses in play, and it takes a little bit of time for students to be able to build those skill sets. And now you're gonna start seeing more capstone style courses. And I think one of the key things that Scott had mentioned was partnering between classes, as he had mentioned. The two student groups being able to work together between Hatchet Innovations and THS Incorporated, where you'd see the design, production, manufacturing side, and then you'd see the sales side of those businesses. So two different courses starting to work together at that capstone level course.
I had a question on the certification you mentioned. Does that fall under Career Tech Ed certifications?
Yeah, Microsoft Office certifications do fall under that incentive grant. There's a couple of what are called ASK certifications. They're specific business discipline certifications out of, I believe it's MBA Research Foundation. I got my hands on 4 practice tests, another one that the kids will choose at least from one of. Again, a lot of them are, knowledge and resume builders for the kids when they leave here, and that's the concept. So basically, money that goes in the course would basically pay for itself after 1 year, even if any more additional funds would have to go in.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, with some grant money you might receive from those certifications.
Yep,
Okay,
absolutely.
awesome, great.
I guess one last question, and I asked this coming from the old school. With the new cash register, do students will still be able to make their own change, or will the cash register tell them?
Good question. I know what I'm looking at, but I know that I'll probably make about 2,500 mistakes with it to start with as well. So the goal is we get it in here as early as we can, and then that gives me more time to fiddle with it and make some of those mistakes before I have the kids make some more with me. So at some level, they have to do it right now. So
Okay.
at least
Good.
they're building up to it. So,
That's good. Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions of Scott? Oh, thank you, Scott.
Yeah. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion for approval of the new course, the THS Incorporated.
Rudai, so moved.
Second, Zimmerman.
Motion made by Rudai, seconded by Zimmerman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Sorry to drop around.
Okay, next on the agenda, item 9, review of the DPI report card. Julie? You're going to educate us on all this, right?
A little bit, yes. Well, good evening, everyone. I want to take this opportunity to share with you some of the changes that have happened within our state and our country in terms of district and school report cards. So that's one of the pieces that I want to share with you tonight. And also I want to talk with you about the fantastic results that we have had, again, within our district. And I'm going to walk through with you those different celebrations that we have, and it's a real testimony to the work of our teachers and our staff in these extraordinary times that we've all been living in. So I have the presentation up on the screen. It's the same as the one that you have. So really these are things that I do when I work with teachers, establish these learning outcomes, which they do with students. So I thought it was appropriate that I do it with all of you tonight. First of all, help you get a general understanding of the updates to our state report card. then go through and look at the Tomahawk School District report card as a whole, and then the individual report cards for each of the buildings, and then think about those connections between what we are seeing in the data to our district strategic plan, and that will be the final slide in our presentation, which will give you a better understanding of our next steps. So first of all, you also have hard copies of all of our building and our district report cards. So if you take a look, as an overall district, we scored in the exceeding expectations area. And I was telling Mr. Ennis earlier today, that's a huge celebration. Not every district fared that well across the state. I've been in contact with several of my colleagues across Wisconsin, and we have definitely something to celebrate here with the hard work that has happened in the last years here in the district. And then in terms of our various buildings, you can see where they scored across in each individual building. And then what I wanted to do is just jump into looking at the changes within the report card. So when we think about this work that has happened, this has been years in the making. So prior to the pandemic, I went in my former district, I attended a WISE conference down in the Dells, and DPI had already started this work with reformatting of the report cards based on recommendations that they got from the feds, and then also the things that they have wanted to change within our state. One of them being a real focus on equity. That's a huge piece, and we're going to talk about that in a few months as well when we start talking about the changes that have been made with ELA and math standards as well. Really that focus on equity. So the front page looks very different. So I just wanted to walk through with you some of the basics on that front page. So you're still going to see celebrations and points that we receive in terms of achievement and growth. Those are still front and center, but also they've added some other pieces that are really important that we need to think about. And one particular we're going to get into is something called target-based or target growth outcomes, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But if you look on the front cover, you're going to see a couple different pieces. So up on the top, you're going to see a narrative that we all put together. That's different because we can talk about the specific strategic plan and what we do here in Tomahawk. The next piece that I want you to be aware of is the student groups piece, and that is how the DPI is asking us to address various groups of students. And not just thinking about ethnic groups, but thinking about gender, thinking about socioeconomic, thinking about what we term as people who receive special education services, for example. So that's the term that we use as student groups. And then you can see as I work my way down that front page, you see the score summary, and then there's a pie chart that's called priority area weights. And that is now how we have different components of that pie chart and how our scores get tabulated. So as I mentioned earlier, achievement and growth are still those same areas we think about. Achievement, how many students are proficient or advanced. We think about growth, how many students have made gains throughout that course of time. And then the two pieces that are those last two is that target group outcomes, which I'm going to talk about, and then that on track to graduation. And those percentages change district by district based on two things: our total school population, and then how many students we have in the district that qualify as economically disadvantaged. So our percentages will look different based on different districts because those numbers are different. Then on that front page, you can see each of those four priority areas or those weighted areas have a score. And what we're looking at here is a 3-year block of time. So we did not have any forward testing during the 1920 school year due to COVID. So we have 3 years of data. This past year of data, and that's weighted as a 1.5. And then we have a skipped year because of COVID, and then the 2 prior years. And the year before that is weighted as a 1.25, and then the year before that is weighted as a 1. So all of these pieces of data are put together, and they're assigned something called the Z-score. And if you're in the statistics, you will know what I'm talking about. But basically, all of these scores are found to be on an equal scale, And then all of these things balance out, and then that is how these scores are determined. So what I want to do next is dive just a little bit deeper into these 4 pieces. As I mentioned, achievement is like how we always think about achievement, and it's based on those 3 years of data. So in your report, you can see on the front page, you're going to get more of the graphics, and it's going to break it down into our various student groups. And then on the back of the page is going to be all the numericals. So you can see how different student groups over time scored in terms of achievement. And we can think about it in terms of both content areas. So we're looking at ELA and math. And then as we walk through, the next area that we're going to look at is growth. And again, we're looking at that 3 years of data. And then there's something that has been included here. That's something called student group value added. And what that is saying is, how did students in these various groups grow? What did their growth look like over time? And what we want to do is we want to think about it in terms of 3 being the average, that middle of the road number. And anything 3 or higher is considered positive growth. So that's another area that we look at in terms of how our various student groups are performing over time and the growth that we want to see with them. The next section is the piece that I want to talk the most about, and that's the target group outcomes group. And earlier I mentioned the fact that our state is really focused on the topic of equity, and this is one of the ways that they want us to focus on that equity piece as well. So for a moment, think about, we have a group of 6th graders, our entire 6th grade group at the middle school. When all of these numbers are tabulated, the bottom 25% of students in that 6th grade group then are removed and put in this group called the target group outcome group. So when we think about that, we think about those students who may be struggling in math, reading, and or both, may have some skill gaps, may have been struggling either just in the last year or 2 with the pandemic, or it's been a longer term struggle. So what happens is this target group outcome group is really looked at heavily now in the state, and that's going to be a big portion of our report card going forward. They want to see what we're going to do to really help those students in that target group grow. And all 3 buildings have just done a phenomenal job this year of really looking at data and coming up with different strategies and working really hard with their staff to come up with meaningful ways to help fill those gaps. So that's really exciting work that we've already started, which is really cool. And then you're going to be able to see in the report how the target group performs in comparison to the non-target group students. Go ahead, Kate.
Okay, so when you say the target group, it's following them, this group of 6th graders up through 7th grade, whatever?
Yes.
It's following them through. It's not like in the past where every 6th grade you compared the score, you know, all the different testing they had 6th grade this year, because it's different groups and different.
Yeah, so they're
Okay,
gonna,
so you're gonna follow them through.
They're gonna take that group of students and then watch how they have progressed over time. So some of our students who 3 years ago were in 6th grade and they were in that bottom target group, they're now at the high school.
Okay.
So we're really doing a good job, and our literacy and math specialists have been doing a really good job as well of really figuring out those students with the needs and making sure that they have some supports put in place.
So you can tell what actions have improved. and-
Exactly.
Great.
And then that last piece is that on track to graduation piece. And it's very fascinating that we can look at scores of 3rd graders and how they performed on the forward exam and use an algorithm to figure out what the probability is if they will graduate or not. So we already can be looking at students and where they're at in elementary school and the likelihood of them graduating from high school, which is pretty phenomenal.
How do you take into account those kids that are leaving the district, new ones coming in? Where do they fall in?
Yeah, and so that's a piece of this, because
Okay.
we do lose some of those students, and that's why, as I mentioned, the principals have been doing a really good job of tracking those students and figuring out, are they still here? And then we did have a huge amount of students enroll,
Mhm.
you know, right away before the school year started. So they're another piece of the puzzle, if you will.
Okay.
A secondary piece to all of this is the feds have asked us to keep track of how many students are participating in fine arts. And that was something that came right from the feds. So that's also a piece in the report card that we didn't have in the past. So that's also tracked to see how many students, for example, participate in music, how many students participate in theater, for example. So I'm pleased with the changes that are making because I feel like we can get a lot more use out of the report card because we have a lot more pieces of information that can help guide our work rather than just saying, okay, you scored at this, well done. It's a much deeper dive and it's a more meaningful use of data, in my opinion. In terms of each building, there are definitely celebrations. All the buildings did phenomenal work in these extenuating circumstances, so I included a couple of bullet points for each of the buildings that you can see some celebrations, and then thinking about it in terms of opportunities for growth. And I think one of the common threads that I observed when I was looking at the data is really looking at the growth of that we would like to see in our economically disadvantaged students, our students with disabilities. I've had some great meetings with Wendy. We've already been talking about some of the pieces that we want to put in place in terms of helping support our SPED teachers, our classroom teachers, and working with students who may fall into that student group. Here's some of the celebrations and opportunities for our middle school. Very exciting, lots of growth happening. And then taking a look at high school. High school, again, is just like the other buildings, has really made a concerted effort to really look at helping students who may struggle and really leveraging that resource time and working with students, whether it's a reteach or front-loading information to help support their needs. For all of you competitive people, there is a chart here that lists out the various conference districts to see how we performed in comparison with them.
What is that ACT comp? Is that ACT
It's a
completed?
composite.
Composite.
Mhm.
You know, I was looking at that and I was kind of, in a sense, surprised, you know, our scores were high district-wise as this competitive person's comparing to the other. And then, you know, I saw that, I thought the ACT comp would be a little higher.
Well, there's, as always, there's lots of variables, and we know with last
Absolutely.
year's pandemic and bringing students in and, you know, all of those variables, but I believe it's a blip on our radar and that we'll have some good scores for.
Yeah, I'm not
2022.
upset about it, but I guess I was just
Sure.
kind of confused when I
Mhm.
saw, you know, how high we were in those areas, and some of those other districts beat us in that area. Oh, the buzzer rang, I guess I gotta quit, but, yeah, that makes sense. It's, you know, like you said, it's a little flashing red light for something to work on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Julie.
Yes.
This is just from last year, not over time, though. Previous,
Correct.
that's from the
Yep.
pandemic year, so other years it was.
Yeah, it was in like 18s.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So is it 3-year combination on this?
No,
Or
just that one is just last year.
Just
Mm-hmm.
2021, okay.
That's just the pandemic year.
Yep, just the
Okay.
pandemic year, yep.
That year, so we can like.
In terms of communicating this information, I think it's really important that all of our stakeholders have an opportunity to learn about this information. So I spent time with all of the admin and with all of our teachers to go over this information. And we wanted to get it to you before we turned it out to the public on our website, so you have opportunities to ask questions. So if questions are posed of you, you will be able to answer or direct them to the person who can answer them. So that information will also go through Skylar to families as well. So they have the opportunity to look at this information, and I have a cover letter that explains all the components of it, so they have a better understanding, because it is a lot of information. And then finally, the piece that I want to end this presentation with is our next steps, because I think this is a really important piece in our conversation. So part of our ESSER 3 money is devoted to something called EBIS. It's Evidence-Based Intervention Strategies. And what that means is we need to use a portion of that ESSER 3 money to really help leverage and come up with a plan that we can help meet the needs of our students. And those may be students who are struggling in that target group. And it also can be students who are exceeding expectations and want to grow, or students anywhere in the middle. So the admin team and I have been working on some different plans that we want to put in place starting next school year in different phases to help really support learning and support our teachers in helping them learn different instructional strategies to meet different needs, and especially different learning and behavioral needs that our students have. And then how we can use that resource time and that win time to really give students what they need, and then connect it back with our strategic plan. So we want to make sure that this plan is a puzzle and we have all of these pieces and they all fit together nicely, because we know that another thing that is isolated and doesn't make any connection with teachers and students doesn't work. So we want to put a really thoughtful plan together that helps meet needs of students and teachers, that really integrates well with the great work that people are already doing in this district. So I'm really excited with that process, and we've already been getting some really positive support and help from our friends at CISA 9 too, so that's been a wonderful thing as well. So we have some really good partnerships with them, so they will help guide our work, and I'm really excited about putting that forward. And as we get to that point, I will happily come back and share it with you. So my turn is done. Questions that you have for me?
I guess,
I think it's,
I come from a background of continuous improvement,
Uh-huh.
so I'm glad we're exceeding expectations. What do you think it's going to take to get to the next step of significantly exceeds expectations?
Oh, to get to the significant point, I don't think it's a big stretch at all. I think it's simply looking at it and saying, what is our data telling us to do, and how can we leverage that data to help us guide our instruction? And the work that I have done in the short time I've been here has been really exciting, because I haven't had any teacher turn their nose up to me. Every teacher that I have worked with has dug in and really said, let's go. So that was really something that made me say, oh, we'll shoot for the stars here.
So what is the data telling us to do?
A couple of different things. There's some foundational skills that some of our students missed due to the pandemic, so we need to polish up on those. And then in terms of the next piece, I see it as more of the critical thinking pieces. So once we have those foundational skills in place, then we can do the application piece.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important for the board to understand how it can support this energy that you're putting forward, particularly in the plan.
Sure.
And as such, as you work through this plan,
Mm-hmm.
and you make your report next year as to what your thoughts are, two things. One, I hope it would correspond with our strategic plan to some degree.
Absolutely.
Okay, I realize the target group may not always be the topmost, well, it is the topmost priority in our strategic plan. Be careful how I say that.
Mm-hmm.
That it addresses all students, that there's a balance between
Absolutely.
all students, okay? And then secondly, that you make sure as a board, we understand how we should be allocating funds, the funds that we need to make available to you in order to make this these improvements, these changes actually take place.
Sure.
Whether that be the hiring of additional interventionists, whether that be additional teacher development days, or programs that support development days, whether that be technology, whatever that might be. I think it's important. In the past, sometimes I don't think we've linked together the plan with what the board needs to understand
Sure.
in the area of support. That's kind of where I'm going with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not bashful, so I will happily come back with a need that we have and ask.
Thank you.
The school report card is so much better than what it was 10 years ago when we got the
Isn't it?
reports on all the testing scores, and it didn't give us any relevant data to know who was improving, so I really like the system.
I agree.
I do too, and I like the changes, some of the improvements that have been made. And your PowerPoint was so good.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I mean, it was very informative and gave me some more background knowledge, so I appreciate that. And I agree with what Dick said, and we need to be communicating, and that's kind of, and you're a great communicator, and all these other people have been too, so appreciate all of you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, we'll move on to staff reports. Item 10. Who wants to start? Wendell, you were standing up. I thought you were coming right for it.
He's anxious.
All right, so I just want to start out, I'll highlight a few things on my written report, and then I've got a couple of additional things. First, I want to give kudos to Mr. Marin. The band concert last night was excellent. At the time when I wrote this and put the dates on here, obviously a week ago, it hadn't occurred yet. But did a phenomenal job with middle school levels and high school as well. And draw your attention to the dates and times next Monday where choir will have their holiday concert. Second thing is, every year I report on Upward Bound. They come and they present to our 8th grade students. Typically that happens sometime after the holiday. This year it happened in November, last day of November. So we had their presentation right here in the auditorium. We've had a lot of students reach out, more than we typically see this early on. So I put some of those numbers on there for you as well. And then Dawn Huseby, our school counselor, will follow up with students. The final date for turning in those applications isn't until March, so we have quite some time yet to recruit even more. Student Council Winter Breakout Day or Fun Day is coming up on the 22nd. This is typically a time where we have a number of different activities. Student Council plans them. We try to get kids out and about and engage with each other and form relationships, doing different activities that we can do within our community. This year we were a little bit limited on what we could do here in town. The bowling alley wasn't available to us, which then created a busing issue with how we, logistics issue, I guess, with how we use where all we can go. So we are going to attend, bring the kids to a movie in Rhinelander. Our theater is no longer available to us. And then we'll actually have bowling over there as well as an option. It looks kind of sketchy on whether or not we can do ice fishing, which is sad. We typically have high numbers of kids that get to go ice fishing. And some of those kids rarely get to fish, on their own. So this is the only opportunity they get to do that. They get to interact with some kids that have high skill levels in that area. So we'll keep an eye on it, but it doesn't look good at this point. So we do have some and we're going to look at replacing that with something closer to home here. We have a few ideas on what we can do there. So that's coming up. We're looking forward to, and then I'm happy to report we finally have some professional development opportunities where we can send people out again. We recently had one of our middle school teachers attend Slate down in Wisconsin Dells and came back with some useful information. Paula Norman was also at that conference, so it was a good opportunity for them to put their heads together and do some planning for some future technology use in the middle school as well. As always, I put our Hatchet Highlights, a link to our Hatchet Highlights newsletter. I do want to give thanks to Aaron Wickman and Connor Ahrens, both of our boys basketball coaches who will be wrapping their season up this Thursday. We had high numbers for middle school basketball this year, which is promising, and they did an excellent job working with those kids this year. A couple of donations I want to recognize. Northwoods Tobacco Free Coalition donated some water bottles, kind of a small promotional kit, had water bottle and an ink pen and some promotional items, promoting their cause to all of our middle school students. So we've had, water bottles always tend to be an issue in the middle school, so we like to keep kids with liquids in their hands and able to do that, but we typically have to have clear water bottles and things of that nature. We end up with a lot of messes that are hard to clean up. So so they donated those, and we were able to get those out to the kids. And then Mr. Nye mentioned recently, or earlier tonight, the donation from the Beyond Chromebooks and Crayons and Chromebooks Committee of the Star Foundation. And I want to also say thank you. The middle school received $1,000 ultimately from the Star Foundation, but to continue to build up our classroom libraries, which is something we've been working on. It is directly in line with some of the goals in our strategic plan to tackle some of those gaps in reading and close those. So very much appreciated, and we will put that money to good use over the coming months as well. Thank you. Any questions? All right.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendell.
For the elementary, I just provided you an update, a written update as far as a couple of the things we have going on in the elementary. We recently had April Schofield visit us from CESA 9. Katie Rainey was helping us with implementation of our Fontes Now reading program. April joined us in the fact that she had some direct teaching experiences with Fontes Now, so it was very helpful for our staff to be able to work with her for the 2 days last week. And she was able to debrief with them then, and we're trying to meet the needs that they see for themselves, which I think is very helpful. And Julie's been working with us on that, so that's been great. I also included Mrs. Pizek is going to start using the Zello program a little bit more. She uses the second step. This is something that she'll probably, the Zello will be utilized more in the next month. And Mrs. Norman is starting a different program that will help with some reading logs and setting goals and trying to increase a little bit more excitement in the elementary for reading. One thing I was very excited about was our parent-teacher conference percentage. We were 96%. Combine that with the Seesaw communication tool that we're using, and I was very happy with the amount of communication that our teachers are having with our families. I thought that was just awesome. So that's what I have for you tonight. Do you have any questions?
No, those numbers were excellent.
Yeah, we were pretty pleased with that.
Questions? Thank you, Guy.
I'm back. So you can see that throughout the high school board report, there's plenty of opportunity to celebrate students succeeding at a very high level. So everything from our drama department appearances at state and some different athletics with swim, obviously some holiday concerts going on right now in the future, and it's just a really great thing to be able to see those students in a different light and experience, or having those experiences with people that appreciate those different kinds of environments as much as they do, especially when they're getting to interact with students from other schools and realizing that their network is that much bigger than just their friend group here that enjoys those different groups. So congratulations to all those various individuals. I wanted to highlight a couple of things though in terms of academic and career planning with that lens. So one of the things that we're really talking about, especially at the high school level, is students being college and career ready and their academic and career planning for how they move forward. So the two programs I wanted to highlight, one of them Mr. Quisenberry mentioned with the Upward Bound program, and then the other program that we had was working with families to sign up and register with FAFSA for financial assistance at the post-secondary level. So when you're talking with students, many of them are choosing different types of career paths that involve post-secondary education, whether it's at a 2-year school or a 4-year school. And so there's a lot of barriers that go along with that. So when you look at the FAFSA, there's the families that complete the FAFSA information, when you look at the percentage, there's a direct correlation to how many of those will go on to college or technical college and also be successful. So just getting families to fill out the paperwork and determine what kind of financial assistance is available to them is the first step in them even attending and going. And so there's data behind that component. So our guidance department basically facilitated an evening where families could set up appointments, come and attend. They'd have access to technology. They had access to a FAFSA representative that could answer questions, help them complete paperwork. And it was just a really good opportunity for them just to have that private way to be able to address their needs as a family and get that paperwork completed. So that was over an evening, and actually a couple different ones actually, and working with those different families, that was well attended. And it seems like something small, but it's huge. That's a big step for those families. And then the second part was something that Mr. Quisenberry was speaking to as well, which was the Upward Bound program. And so again, a lot of those students might have career aspirations that deal with going to school, but no one in their family has attended school prior to them. They could be first generation. Or again, that financial component of being able to attend, they may not think it's even possible. And then actually looking at it for, preparing them years in advance of getting all those base skill sets done as far as just executive functioning, being able to organize, plan, communicate, kind of those independent skills that they will definitely need with going on to a post-secondary institution and being successful. So I really wanted to highlight those two items through the academic and career planning lens of how we're trying to help students and families be ready for their after high school plans, because they are going to leave. That's the goal. As they graduate, they move on, and whatever that plan is for them, they're prepared to complete that. Any questions?
Any idea how your attendance was with the parent-teacher conferences?
Parent-teacher conferences for us, quite honestly, as a high school, is almost an obsolete type of
measurement.
Because
okay.
For us, we sit there and we say, well, parent-teacher conferences are great, and it's an opportunity to focus on working directly with families. We hope that that's happening every day.
Okay.
And so we don't want to wait 6 weeks for a family to be able to get some inquiry about something that they could have, assist with their child. So we're really promoting that every day, early and often communication with families is something that we're really promoting. So obviously throughout the course of the week we saw, reporting back from teachers, they had really good success making contacts with the families that they needed to, which is often a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I think the flexibility of having the virtual sessions, the phone calls. We did have several families come into the building and meet directly with teachers face to face, which is great as well. And they can also plan how much time they need when they're doing those individual conferences. Some of them might need a little more time, or others it's just a quick check-in. So they're definitely beneficial, and it's a great week to focus to make sure that those happen. But ultimately, we want to be doing that every day.
Okay.
And it's different at each building level.
Great. Appreciate that. Any questions, Orion?
Thank you.
Thank you. Stacy, did you have anything to add? Yeah, I'm going to pick on you. You're there.
I normally covers it all.
Okay.
I guess I would just piggyback on what Wendell said about being able to send some people off to professional development. 2 years ago, I wrote a grant called the SEL in Action Grant. It was a $14,000 grant, which was basically used, or was going to be used to support our recruit program at the high school. And part of that grant was continuing to develop our teacher leaders and teacher advisors. And last year, because of the pandemic, all of the trainings were canceled. The Student Link Conference was canceled. So now they've actually opened it back up starting in 2022. So we're able to send 2 staff members, Taylor Hazinski-Pike and Amanda Johnson, to Lake Crew Advisor training, and that will be in Illinois. And that's for like a 4-day training right after spring break, and it's all paid for through this grant that I was able to obtain. So we're excited about that. And actually, they have them in probably 7 different states, the locations, and they're pretty much 80% booked, sold out. So it's something that's very in demand, so we got on it right away, so those guys are scheduled to go. So.
Great. Well, thank you for the time in that, putting in for the grant. Wendy, do you
I don't have too much. We've just been doing some SEL work at our elementary level. Denise Peisig has been in our trauma sensitive team with Christine Peterson, our school psychologist, our speech and language teachers, And Amanda Roberts, our behavioral support room, our Hawaii room, have been working with the teachers on zones of regulation where students identify with different colors and then strategies to learn to regulate their emotions and implement strategies so that they can do better in class. And then they go to Mrs. Roberts' room, that behavioral support room, for kids that have challenges. So Ms. Roberts has been sent to training for that. Well, she did virtual training, but she had training in it, and then Denise Paisig is going to do it as well. So those are some of the strategies that we've been building in at the elementary to address our whole child pillar. And then at the middle school and high school, we met as a district PBIS team, talked about what we learned from students at the Team Truth, and they're taking it back to and working with their student teams now to talk about what are some viable options that they can implement in each building. We've started to do some of that at the middle school level, where we've had our school psychologist has had some open hours because, we don't have a school social worker anymore, and with one counselor at the high school to help address some of those student needs that come up. We're still working on building, understanding that program, but those are just some of the areas that we've been working on as the old days.
Thank you. Julie, I saw you had a report on here. Did you have anything to add from that report?
Just the first page is just an overview of some of the things. I should have just said it again. Just the first page, just is an overview of some of the things that our office has been working on. The second page and the third page that I just want to draw your attention to, because in the legislative session, there were a lot of components that really focused on education, and I just wanted to make you aware of some of those. Some of those were signed into law, and there was one that was of notice that was vetoed, but that's going to be coming back around again. So just making you aware of some of those pieces. And the one that was vetoed had considerable support, but it got to Governor Evers' desk and he vetoed it. And that is the one that has to do with foundational reading skills for our early learners. So one of the things that has been happening since this has been vetoed, there has been an ad hoc committee put together to really start looking at what are we going to do, because in the last measures, about 64% of our students between K and 2 aren't making the gains that they need to become proficient readers by grade 3. So the things that they have been putting in place, we've been very proactive in this district and have a lot of those pieces in place, including assessments throughout the year to monitor growth, and then also having interventionists work with students in small groups and working with classroom teachers and pushing to help those strugglers. So those are some core components of that work that they're going to be doing, so we're ahead of the game. And then the last piece is just a list of some other pieces that came from DPI that we needed to make sure that we were adhering to. One is the dyslexic guidebook. There was a big push from the state and making sure that districts were very proactive in providing a set of protocols and guidelines if students in the district are diagnosed with a form of dyslexia. So I met with Angie McPherson prior to her leave, and we worked through, and many of the pieces were in place already. We just refined a couple of those steps here in the district, and then we posted that guidebook on our website, so if parents have questions about that, we can talk with them about what we do in the district to help meet needs of struggling students. EL handbook is work that's been in the works. We don't have a huge student group of EL students, but we do have some. So we want to make sure that we continue working with that, and Denise Paisig heads up a lot of that work at the elementary, so I'm going to be meeting with her in January to firm up that plan. And then, of course, what I just mentioned about making sure that all of our stakeholders are aware of our district and building report cards. Lots of things happening.
Thank you for those updates.
You're welcome.
Nice way to, I'm sure you've had some of that, Deb?
What's that?
The updates and the vetoes from CISA?
Yes.
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 Yeah, and there were many. I sat on a few webinars and they were interesting. So thank you.
Thank you. Does Jean have anything over there? Okay. You're working on your Hatchet Pride switch, or your Hatchet, not Hatchet Pride, I mean.
Emails.
Emails, okay. Joe?
Okay, just a few comments. First of all, congratulations. You know, to our teachers, our administrators, support staff, it's a team effort, and there's just a lot of positive things going on in the Tomahawk schools. So congratulations to you and to all of our staff on that. And I know that, you know, over the years, you know, we get involved in issues in schools, and oftentimes it's difficult for some of these things that are so positive to kind of like bubble up to the top. And because they kind of get drowned out a little bit. But from what you hear tonight, and it happens day in and day out in our schools, there's just a tremendous number of positive things going on. So congratulations to everyone on the school report card and all the other great things that are happening here. Just a couple other things. CISA is looking at some type of dates for joint teacher in-services for next year. So we may have to, if the district chooses, look at the calendar and adjust the in-service dates or whatever a little bit, one in particular. And the idea would be that a number of schools would get together and conduct like joint in-service sessions. And it opens up opportunities for, you know, a wider range of trainings perhaps. But even for individual subject areas, like whether it's science or business or whatever, you can get a group of 4 or 5 staff members together from different school districts or more and work on joint projects, or at least understand what each is doing in their particular districts and participate hopefully in some type of staff training as well. So as we learn more about that, you know, a little bit, maybe in a month or two, as to how that's going to go over in CISA, we'll bring that back, because like I said, it might require a calendar adjustment in regard to those in-service days. You may have read that the state released $110 million, and it was related to COVID funding to school districts in the state. And of that amount, Tomahawk's going to end up with a little bit over $150,000 of funding for this year that was not originally of course planned on. Now that's a lot of money, and every bit helps, and it does help in terms of this year's budget. But as we recall, as of the last time we looked at it, the district was like $1.8 million in the red, so that $150,000 will certainly put a dent in that, but it's only for this year. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it does help the current budget, but it does not solve the long-term problems that the district has in regard to funding over the next few years. I know there's been some discussion about when is the building going to open up more in terms of community use of the facility and that sort of thing. And of course, we're aware that the swimming has opened up in the morning, and glad to see some participation there. And we want to open it up to walkers in the morning too, but I know Ireland is waiting for an alarm for a door actually. And as soon as that gets installed, then hopefully we can open the building up in the morning for people that like to do the walking as well. I did have the opportunity today to visit the Chamber of Commerce in Tomahawk, and that was a very nice visit. I learned quite a bit about Tomahawk, and of course we talked about our school district. And I think there can be, not that there hasn't been or whatever, but more of a team effort there in terms of promoting the city and the area as well as a school district. So I know that you know, they are looking for information from the school, positive information that can be put in their brochures and pamphlets or whatever in terms of the school. So as people, you know, consider taking positions here and everything, that working in the community, that they can look at that and kind of make a determination, maybe somewhat, on all the positive things that are going on in the Tomahawk schools. We talked about communication. You know, where do you find information related to the school and that sort of thing? And I know the word communication has been, you know, discussed here quite a bit. And I really think there could be perhaps a survey go out in terms of parents as to, okay, how would you like to be communicated with? For example, you know, a comment or two was made about it's kind of difficult to find things on the district website. Well, what can we do to upgrade that website so it is more accessible and that sort of thing? So we had some good conversations about that, as well as the needs of the school district in terms of the upcoming referendum. So it was good to, you know, talk to some people in the community. Hope to continue that dialogue over the next, you know, 2, 3, 6 months or whatever it might be. And I think it was a very positive conversation. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Kay.
Thank you. Thank you for making that contact with them. Yeah. And on their website, I imagine, I haven't looked at their website, but that's a way we could link up too, because they have pages for each individual membership too, and we have a membership there. So. Okay, item 11, approval of the Tomahawk Leadership Profile document that we received from the HYA. You should have received that, reviewed that. If anybody had any questions or comments, I had one that I forwarded to them about it. Did everyone have a chance to look at it? The superintendent search? It's been out there for a couple of weeks. Any comments or questions on that? Okay.
Wasn't there a question on the strategic plan paragraph on that? Did you get?
That's my question that I put forward to them, just to come on page 5 in the bottom, the last paragraph, to clarify it. Because they have it stated as, in August, the Board of Education for the school district Tomahawk began a landmark. And the way I read that is they're talking about this year, where it was really 2019, just to clarify that date. I get a misinterpretation.
And it said we'd be developing a strategic plan too.
Yeah.
So that needs to be fine-tuned a little bit, I think.
They basically took some of that information right off the website, and I asked for that to be cleared up and just updated for that.
Will they be
paragraph.
doing that then?
That went forward to them, so they said they asked if we could look at the draft and go with that. If the draft was okay, they would go ahead and take care of that.
Okay.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve the document provided. Second?
Second move.
Motion been made by, or approved. Motion been made by Law and approved by Baloo. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on to item 12, to appoint the ad hoc policy committee. Many of you are involved in the referendum, so I have asked Jeffrey and Bonnie, thank you, Bonnie, to help look at some of the policies, because we haven't looked at policies for almost 8 months. And so as a ad hoc committee, we'll look at some of those policies and bring them back to the board, just so we don't get backlogged with them. And we don't have 26 policies at a meeting or something like that. But we will meet tomorrow at 11 o'clock to go through some of those. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware they've been appointed, and we'll follow up. So it's an ad hoc for right now. If anybody's welcome to review policies with us if you want.
Thank you for doing that.
Well, I know that referendum committee's had a lot of time put into. So, moving on, finance report, item 13. Joe. The finance report should be attached, and the finance committee reviewed it earlier this evening. Joe, do you have any comments on the finance report? Or
Just that, you know, it's a normal school year in terms of the expenditures and revenues that are, you know, come into the district as of this point. So the budget overall is headed in the direction that was anticipated at this time. You know, we're certainly watching expenses and trying to, you know, cut back and not spend where we don't need to, which is an ongoing thing. But I guess overall it appears to be a normal budget year as of this point.
questions or comments for Joe? Okay. Moving on to item 14. Discuss and approve the referendum amount and duration. Who wants to take this one over?
I guess I can comment with Deb. I don't know if you want to.
No, Joe, you were.
Okay.
That's-
Well, so our referendum planning committee has met several times, and one of the charges of that group was to determine, okay, what is the amount of money that the district will need over the next few years, and, you know, how long would what would be the duration in terms of how many years would the referendum go? So anyway, after a lot of discussion and reviewing, you know, future forecasts and that sort of thing, the committee made a decision, I guess is making a recommendation, that the district seek a $3.25 million referendum each year for the next 3 years. And that would, you know, carry the district for those 3 years. And basically what the district is asking for is that the money, you know, the referendum that was previously in place, basically asking that that money be restored to the school to maintain existing programs. There's really nothing new, you know, nothing new would be created as a result of like a new, you know, larger project or anything planned at this point. For those funds, it would just be to maintain current programs. And it would be strictly an operational referendum, would not relate to any major capital projects or anything like that. And so that's the basis of the recommendation. As far as the final resolutions in that related to the referendum, those would be acted on by the board in January. I think there's a deadline of like January 25th, I believe, somewhere in there, that it would officially be acted on, but there's plenty of time to do that. So that's a recommendation of the committee, and if that is approved, then we move forward.
Okay. So the recommendations there to make the approval for the 3.25 for the next 3 years, is there a motion to take that forward?
Rude, I so move.
And a second?
Long, second.
Motion's been made by Rudai, seconded by Vaughn to carry forward with the recommendation of the referendum. Okay. Item 14, we'll be going into close board. Sorry about that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carried. Moving on to item 14, we'll be going to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses C, considering employment, promotions, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibilities, parentheses D, to consider strategy for criminal detection and prevention. F, consider financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data or of specific persons. There's 4 items that we'll go through. We will be moving into the district office. We'll come back in here just to say that we adjourn, but there'll be no action carried during those. So thank you all for coming.
I just realized the first Monday back is the high school staff meeting. The Wednesday
Okay,
is
can I have a motion to go into
middle
closed
school
session?
staff meeting, so Tuesday
Second?
and Thursday would be
I'll second.
Motion was made by Long,
All right.
seconded by Zimmerman.
Thank you.
Roll call. Long,
Yes.
Zimmerman.
Yes.
I'll go through it. Huseby,
Yes.
Baloo,
Yes.
Kissinger Wolf, yes.